Just a moment, folks. Looks like we're almost good. Hola a todos, bienvenidos. Today we're going to continue with the ayahuasca intelligence theme from a few days ago. There were a couple of comments that were made that I realized I may have framed things in a way that wasn't clear enough. And also, there's always more to add to this particular branch of the conversation. Is ayahuasca truly intelligent? Does it just put us in greater communication with parts of the mind that we normally don't have access to? Is it literally a spirit that is communicating with us? Is it the spirit of ayahuasca or some other spirit, and the chemicals in the vine just kind of open us up to this type of spirit world communication? I really don't have a completely solid answer. I don't know that it's possible to. I don't really buy the plant spirit idea so much, because the vine and the leaves sit in one spot in the jungle. They have no life experience, nothing to draw on. If that's their life, then they wouldn't know anything about healing your traumas and, your dark skeleton. You know what I mean? It doesn't really work for me. So I'm definitely leaning more in the direction of the nervous system filter getting turned down or off by these compounds, and then that connecting us to a universal mind. But I'm very fascinated in regards to exactly what that means. Objectively, what does that mean? How does it do what it does? Let me look at my description, because I don't even remember what exact. Oh, yeah. And we're also going to talk about the ally plants, because there's this interesting capacity of ayahuasca to diagnose and then prescribe plants that work. In one case, I had a client here who had drank 3 or 4 times a week for almost an entire month. And it definitely wasn't the medicine. Everyone else had plenty of visions, but he had no visions. And the medicine told me to go and cut down some red ortiga and give him a cleansing with it. And the visions occurred after this. And that's what I was told, that would happen. And I had no one had ever told me this. You know what I mean? It came out of nowhere, and it turned out to be exactly true. So, it's a tremendously interesting question. And then, another aspect of this universal mind kind of position on this is that the medicine seems to know how to make the right associations. What's up, Northern Light? We just had a great conversation on faith and stuff on the X platform. Of course, you guys, if you know me at all, you know that I'm no friend of faith. Or belief, I guess, even. Everything has to remain in a state of fluctuation in order to allow for possibilities. The wave is a cloud of probabilities until some finality is imposed upon it. There's so much more potential in probability than in actuality. So much more. It's pregnant with possibilities, right? So, but what I was saying is that, the plant itself seems to know how to make allies. Or one thing that it's definitely occurred to me is that it's the guy in mind, because it knows the other plants. Bobinsana, for example, opens the heart, and then it teaches songs, especially when used in conjunction with ayahuasca. And of course, the importance of this is that if you've ever heard like a really, really good Shipibo Ikaro, without the heart open, the music is going to be empty and stale and vapid. It's not going to have the kind of emotional potency that it needs to uplift people and heal people and, all of the things that these Ikaros can do, unless the heart of the person is connected to what they're doing. So, is it that the opening of the heart leads to this connection to receive the music, or, but the point being that all of these ally plants they have very specific relationships to different processes, and ayahuasca seems to know them all. I've had the medicine attempt to flush parasites out of me when I was trying to purge, and I couldn't purge it, just washed right through the other end for hours and hours and hours. And I was told, I can flush the bugs, but I cannot kill the eggs. So it's just a really interesting question to consider. How have these associations formed? Another interesting one is that a lot of the tribes did not make certain connections. It was not until there was syncretism that it escaped the lab, so to speak. Like in the case of Sananga, right? The video that I just put out. If you didn't get a chance to watch that, you might dig it. Hopefully, would dig it. The Matsis are the tribe that discovered Kambo and Sananga, but they don't use ayahuasca. They don't use anything psychoactive, really. I mean, if you drink the Sananga, it's a bit psychoactive. It contains ibogaine. But the point being of this association with ayahuasca and putting the drops in the eyes during ceremony, that is something that I'm not really sure where that started. It was not the Matsis, though, I can tell you that for sure. And so maybe it's just a no-brainer, because anybody that has any experience with this stuff knows that the efficacy of all other plants is amplified by combining them with ayahuasca. To the extent that the Shipibo don't really like to do it. They think it can be too much. For me, bobinsana and ayahuasca is definitely exactly right. And the application of sananga in the eyes without ayahuasca does not result in this internal bath kind of feeling, this soul cleanse. You have to take it at the peak of an ayahuasca experience to really understand what it is. And, that opens a whole bunch of other interesting questions, that people were concerned in the present moment, for example, about New Age influences. And, I've seen good traditional shaman abandon their own traditional practices in order to conform with the expectations of consumers, for example. This is all bad, but at the same time, these medicines, because of the cross-pollination with the different tribes and different people now, we are finding ways to amplify the experiences that are available to us through these combinations. So it really is an interesting thing, and I really constantly just kind of relate it to Michael Levin's idea of light cones, that we have systems that have an innate intelligence, and that you expand those to include a greater circle of intelligence. And so it's like we had a single tribe that found this medicine, and then it expands out into a larger light cone, and then we have the collective of all the tribes, compiling knowledge and amplifying the efficacy of these medicines. And so it's really a crazy thing, and it is a double-edged sword for sure, whether this is all in the end good or not. So here's an aspect of the let's fix this first. Last stream, I was talking about how instances of telepathy and precognition, and I've received information that is accurate that no one could have known many times with this medicine. And some woman in the chat asked me, what am I eating right now? And I was like, I don't know. I didn't even get it. I should have said something just to see if I could have, but I never said that these medicines permanently give you the ability to know the future and to have any information in the entire universe instantly that you want. That's obviously stupid. It's intermittent. And it even seems like there is some mitigating agency, right? There's something that determines what information you can have and what information you cannot based on relevance. It usually seems to come that way. So I just wanted to clarify, in case anyone else was thinking that because I said that these things happen, then that means that it's like a normal, permanent part of your reality once you've experienced it. Your inclination to receive that type of information is increased by exposure to these realms with the plant medicine, but it does not make you an all-knowing, omnipotent being, despite what a lot of shamans would have you believe. Do me a favor, you guys, hit the like button, share, subscribe, consider becoming a patron. What's up, Neil? Have not seen you in the chat for a while. Good to see you there. Neil knows a little something about the intelligence of these medicines and the weird magic that can come along with it for sure. Okay, so Universal mind versus ayahuasca as an actually intelligent being. Um, I'll give you guys another example of, this is something that I have trouble explaining according to biophotons, for example, which is one of those sort of mysterious phenomena that we actually probably have answered, right? Everything on this realm happens according to a deterministic mechanism basis. None of it's woo. There has to be some way for things to play out, or they will not happen. The electromagnetic field, for example, can carry information from one brain to another across continents, and it may be able to do it instantly because of entanglement. We have ways of reconciling these type of experiences with, the real world, and this is of absolutely fundamental importance, I think. But the first time I cut a large ayahuasca vine, it was actually not the first time I cut one. You can find that video on my I was sinking in quicksand while cutting the ayahuasca vine. I found it running along the ground, and I went up on this hill and I started cutting. I wasn't paying attention, and by the time I looked down, I had slipped into this quicksand up to my thighs already. So not that one, but a much larger one. I'm surprised I never got any video of this, actually. Yeah, it's crazy that I didn't go. I had the channel. I don't know why I didn't do this. But anyways, I was going out into the jungle to look for ayahuasca, and this voice in my head said, you're going to waste hours just walking straight down this trail. You're not going to find a vine. There's nothing there. And I was like, that's just the bullshit voice in my head. Because there was ayahuasca all over the place in this area. It was really, really common. And it was true. I walked back through this path for like 2 hours. It was starting to get dark. And I got back out to the road, and the voice is back. And it says, go 100 meters, not even, maybe 100 feet, down the road to the left, and you'll find the vine. So I was like, all right, I'll humor you, So I go down to the I see a stream, and ayahuasca likes extra water. The jungle's pretty wet, but it likes extra water. So it grows along creeks and streams and rivers and stuff a lot. And I follow this little stream in about 30 feet, and there's a massive Banisteriopsis muricata, a huge red ayahuasca vine. And really, it was probably the still to this day my favorite vine that I've ever harvested. It was extremely powerful and just perfect. Every batch of the ayahuasca that I made from that one was just exactly as it should be. And so then the question is, how did that happen? To say that it was coincidence does not really sit too well with me, because I was led directly to that vine. So what was it? Is it the universal mind? Was the vine itself calling me? How and why? And it was a mother too. It had hundreds of seedlings all around on the ground. If I'd had any presence of mind, I would have dug a few of them up and taken them with me to plant them elsewhere and everywhere, really. Especially considering that most of them will end up strangling each other out before. That was a huge misstep as well. But these are the kind of questions that I am kind of stuck on. Earlier, I think I mentioned the biophoton thing, and that is, a tremendously important idea because it could explain a whole lot of unexplainable stuff. Every square centimeter of living tissue emits biophotons at the rate of 100 per square centimeter per second, and they contain information that other cells can use from different species that it can be interpreted. There have been studies that have proven this to be true. But and that would explain how ayahuasca was discovered, right? You go out in the jungle, you're looking for medicine, and you're receiving input from all of this light, your DNA, and the idea is that the indigenous people could receive it, and we lost that capacity from living in concrete jungles, and use it or lose it is kind of a law of evolution. If you don't use some capacity, like, eyeless newts or whatever in caves, eyeless fish, you'll lose that capacity. So they didn't lose it. Still, that doesn't explain how in the hell that ayahuasca vine, I was able to connect with it and, walk right to it. And the thing is, it wasn't really like right on the creek. I followed the creek back, and I just cut straight over at the right time and walked straight into this massive, probably 30 or 40-year-old vine. Very, very interesting stuff. And then there's also the fact that a lot of these entities, not only are they perceived by a lot of people, you get similar reports from DMT, right? We have these mantises, and we have the self-transforming machine elves, and all of this other cast of characters from the DMT realm beyond the waiting room. And even weirder, though, I have seen with my own eyes at least 2 occasions where people both saw a spirit being the same way. Actually 3, I guess. And on one occasion, we went to the waterfall and kind of invoked these water spirits that the Shuar, kind of their life almost revolves around them. And later that night, there was like water dripping down the, I don't know what to call it, like the post in the porch. And it kind of made this shape, and there was a little like green and blue and yellow and red, like all the 7 colors of the rainbow, like doop, 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 doop. And as it pulsated through this thing, it was making these ethereal sounds. And I looked over, and the rest of the group was sitting there staring at the thing with me. So that invocation of these water spirits seemed to actually have some kind of effect. On another occasion, I drank ayahuasca with my partner, and there was a ring of spirit beings around us. One of them was female, and it reached, Enrica sat up and reached for it to hug it, and they were reaching for each other to hug, and at the last second, the spirit's like, "Don't touch me, mortal," you know, and I watched my partner fall back looking all dejected and sad. And in the Shipibo, Maestra Juanita also would call these cleaning octopus things, and I know that she was seeing them because she waited for them all to attach to me before she started the Ikaro, and then when they were all gone, the moment they had all been blown away and sent back to from whence they came, she stopped and moved on to my partner. So, you know, all of that kind of stuff suggests very strongly that these creatures have some sort of existence, you know, whether that means it's objective. Maybe they are formulated in the mind of the shaman and really only represent electromagnetic energy that has been configured to a purpose, and our mind is giving it form, you know. That seems like a very good possibility to me. Precognition is not exclusive to ayahuasca. Things happen without psychedelic drugs too. Yeah, well, Neil's pointing out that this doesn't always require ayahuasca to happen, and that's true. It's happened to me since childhood, you know. I mean, I've always had some sort of guiding voice that, you know, told me things about drug use when I was like 6 that was all perfectly true and solid advice, and no one had said anything, you know what I mean? I didn't get it from anywhere. Lots of experiences like that. So it's definitely true that precognition doesn't just happen from ayahuasca. And I would say that it's not happening because of ayahuasca. It is the increased communication between the 2 hemispheres of the brain, or from between the conscious and subconscious mind, because, you know, the theory that I'm the most accepting of, and that a lot of other really smart people that I respect have come up with on their own as well, like Maynard James Keenan from Tool, is that you know, you are observing the fundamental patterns that underlie creation all the time, everything you look at. And once, speaking of ayahuasca, I had this experience where I was looking at all of these ridiculous visions that made no sense, and they served no purpose, and they were doing nothing for me. And I complained about it, and the medicine's response was, just your brain works in a language of symbolism. Just because you don't understand what's being communicated doesn't mean nothing's being communicated. And so there is this constant, information integration that is happening, and most of it ends up stored in the subconscious. And pattern recognition, right, is one of our brain's superpowers. It is the thing that makes space and the universe and life navigable. It's what allows us to predict anything, and just so much, you know. So you have the ability in your pattern recognition system to extend the present moment into the future, potentially, you know. But that still doesn't quite, you know, explain a lot of this stuff, like people observing the same types of beings at the same time, not just in their own separate experiences, but literally like physically present in the room with you. We're shared hallucinations, people would call it, although I'm not convinced that they're hallucinations at all. I feel like, did I make was that solid? Was that clear enough? So I said I was going to talk about the ally plants a little bit, and I can't remember which ones. The people had been asking me about stuff, and I thought it would be best to just address it on the stream. I get a lot of questions about tobacco and rape and their utility as aids in this whole process. But I think I discussed that in the last one, the fact that, after the ceremony, to integrate and retain all the information, tobacco is great for locking it all in. Bobinsana we talked about already. Uña de gato. Uña de gato, this is another evidence of the universal mind, and so is sangre de drago. The shamans basically say that uña de gato is like letting a jaguar loose in the nervous system. So anything that's not supposed to be there, the claws hooked in, drags it out. And if you've ever seen uña de gato, it has cat's claws on it. I mean, they look exactly like, not a jaguar, they're not that big, but they look exactly like, maybe an ocelot claw or something, bigger than a house cat, but exactly like a cat's claw. And so this is an example of that level of communication from nature, the learning to read the true scripture that is written large upon the land for those who have eyes to see it. This is that kind of thing, that uña de gato is the jaguar spirit of ayahuasca that attacks the enemies and drags them out of the system. And you can tell it's going to do this because it has the claw of a cat. You also... I can't remember the name of this plant, but you can find it in my short somewhere. There is a plant that's used by the Shuar to specifically for Dos Equis bites, which Dos Equis, if you get bitten in the jungle, almost definitely going to die because you're not going to make it to the hospital in time unless you happen to be carrying antivenom with you. And if you don't die, you're at least going to lose a leg. There was a girl in Colombia like last year that was bitten walking down the sidewalk in the city, and even though it only took them 10 minutes to get her to the hospital, she still had to have her leg amputated. If you get this antidote from the Shuar, you will not have amputation or death. And so it is more efficacious than hospital treatment, and they will not tell us everything that's in it. But the one plant, the bark looks just like Dos Equis skin, and the leaves look like snake heads hanging everywhere. So, there's that. And then sangre de drago, right? Studies were done recently that the researchers' response was something along the lines of the degree to which this plant assists the blood in healing wounds is beyond scientific explanation, right? And so its activity is primarily in the blood and working with blood cells. When you cut the tree, a blood red latex comes out. It looks just like blood. So, I guess the overall overarching theme of all of this stuff is that, whether or not ayahuasca is literally a plant spirit, which I'm not on board with really, it is obvious that nature is intelligent, that nature knows that something is looking because it uses visual cues. And one of the most important things about pointing all this out is that how insane it is that people can actually go through their whole lives without even seeing this. I mean, not trying to boast here, but recently, something that I had interpreted according to this methodology was confirmed. Morel mushrooms look like brains. So I said, I bet they're really good for your brain. And, then they also have prodrugs, or what are they called? Precursors to serotonin or dopamine, or, some sort of neurotransmitter that we like to have. And that's why people get so obsessed with morels. And then at the time I looked it up. There was no studies, no information about this at all. This was like 6 or 7 years ago. And then morel season is coming around again. It actually just rained 2 days in a row. And I checked again, and now there are all these studies that, brain health and mood and it looked like a brain. I knew that. I didn't need science to tell me, because this kind of communication between nature and people, it doesn't even require biophotons, eyes to see. That is all, So it tells us a couple of things. It tells us that the idea that consciousness is integrated into the fundamental fabric of reality is almost definitely true. Otherwise, how could these plants, without a direct connection with our perception, how could these plants present themselves in ways that indicate their uses? You know what I mean? It's basically proof that there is a consciousness integrated into the fundamental fabric of nature. The all is mind. What's up, Athena? I've been wanting to ask, do you smoke marijuana or drink alcohol? I'm just curious. I do not smoke marijuana. I wouldn't say I would never smoke marijuana. Like if I chewed too much coca and somebody showed up and was like, hey man, I have a joint, I would smoke it with them, but I would probably only take a few hits. I do not do anything habitually. I drink alcohol occasionally, but never really to excess. It should be completely and totally on my avoid list, I guess. But coca, which I really need up here, I get shortness of breath and stuff all the time. I'm actually really looking forward to getting down to the jungle in Manu. I've had about enough of the high country. We want to finish out the morel season, and by the way, we have spaces still for November 15th through December, and I am trying to make them all private sessions. So 10 days private session in our home, and then May and Manu, there's 2 or 3 slots open. So email me if you're interested in all that stuff. Also consultations and you can find big lists on the Patreon where you should be a member anyways, because I'm demonetized and I get no support from Babylon Machine Man. So I rely on you guys to justify sitting here and talking about these things and stuff, crap and junk, catfish bait. But yeah, overall, alcohol's dumb, I would have to say. It certainly is not the healthiest thing. So I don't really approve of it. I mean, I'm a big fan of really good beers. I'm from the West Coast, California, where microbreweries in Oregon, I don't know about now, but it used to be the most microbreweries in the United States. And yeah, so, and then here we have Pisco, a lot. That's a very popular drink. And Pisco sours are amazing. They're delicious. Just don't drink more than 2 of them, or you risk being a dumbass. What is this? Smoking marijuana too. I mean, I used to be way into pot growing. I used to know all of the terpenes and their uses, and tetrahydrocannabivarin versus tetrahydro, whatever, all the different cannabinoids. And I've grown over 300 different strains of marijuana, including plants that you have to harvest with scaffolding and a chainsaw. And I've hunted tweakers, in my driveway and stuff in Northern California back in the old outlaw days. But yeah, when I look at potheads, pot smokers, I see paranoia, delusions. And I'm talking about chronic pot smokers. They are completely out of touch with reality. They're in denial about all of the pothead symptoms that they say they don't have, that they obviously are riddled with. I think marijuana exists somewhere on a line between alcohol and psychedelics. It can almost go either way for people depending on chemistry and disposition and whatnot. Recommends advice for getting into administering combo. Opinions on international combo practitioners, distribution, production. We have an actual Motsies guy that comes to our retreats. He's actually coming back for November, which that wasn't on the table before. But here's the thing. Drink 2 liters of water Take your dots, start with 3. Make sure that you're not going to have a bad reaction. Do not do it alone the first time, or probably ever, but especially the first time. And there's really no insane science to it. You know, if you really feel that you need the combo Icaros, you can learn them online. I don't really see the administration of combo as part of a shamanic practice because, for example, the Matsis who discovered it do not have shamanism. They don't have that. It's just plants and healing and medicine. You know, they don't use ayahuasca, they don't use San Pedro, they don't use psilocybin mushrooms, they don't use yopo, they don't use a peña snuff. So, you know what I mean? It's kind of ridiculous to say that people need to have shamanic training to be a combo practitioner when the people that discovered combo do not have shamans. So, the thing is, Neil met Carlos. The thing is, combo can be dangerous. And something that I've learned about these medicines throughout the years is that they are just like seafood in the sense that it doesn't matter how safe you are, how careful you are, how knowledgeable you are, how good intentions you are. There are people that are going to have predispositions, unknown health problems. You can have just a heart arrhythmia you don't know about, drink a strong ayahuasca and die. You know what I mean? And combo is definitely more dangerous than any of these other medicines, which are safe, but they're not entirely safe. So, it's good to be realistic about the fact that although combo has been proven to have some efficacy for, the sun came out. It rained 2 days in a row, you guys, so tomorrow and the next day we're going morel hunting. I sure hope we find them, and some of you guys should come and join us for the month of November or for a week or whatever. What was I saying, though? Okay, combo has been proven, at least some of the peptides and various, opioid compounds and whatnot there's a lot of stuff in that frog venom, right? Those compounds have been isolated, and then they have shown the ability to block HIV from doing damage and to shrink tumors and to help with anxiety and all of this stuff. But that doesn't mean what's going on from the light of darkness. That doesn't mean that taking the frog venom where these things aren't isolated is going to do those things for you. It just doesn't. So, in a way, I feel like combo is a little bit riskier than it's probably worth. At least until the first time you've tried it, and the reality is that out of like 20 million applications or something, there's been like 3 deaths. So it's not really that risky. But I have to also add that I have seen things with my own eyes that suggest that there is plenty of benefit to taking combo. And in one case, somebody was having a pretty serious break from reality, and the combo seemed to snap him back into focus to a degree that I don't think would be possible with any pharmacological substances that are known to man. And so now we got some folks piling in here. So if you guys have any other questions, comments, no shame in doing in my bathroom with my wife. Blowing lines of combo. You'll die. I've done it. I'm just wondering your perspective opinion. Yeah, I know it works for people. I know it does. It never did anything for me at all. I didn't notice any kind of benefit at all whatsoever. It's just 20 or 30 minutes of being really sick and then no change at all. And I have chronic health problems, and there was no change in any of that. So I'm going to try it again in a few days and see what I think again. But, yeah. It's crazy. Soul Quest closed it down in Orlando. That's a bummer. Yeah, well, I've heard mixed things about Soul Quest, the good and the bad, but I'm sure that's probably true of just about anybody. Let me see here. Have I missed any? thing that is of great and important relevance. All right, I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to come up with questions or topics while I try to think of what plants I could have missed. All right. Well, I guess maybe that's the end, folks, unless somebody pops a question or a topic in the chat in the next couple of minutes. I think I'm going to go for a walk and then eat some mushrooms or drink some mushrooms, actually. So please do hit the lick button, the like button, share, subscribe, consider becoming a patron where you can access millions of years of premium material. And if you are planning to come in May, get your deposit in and ensure your position. And let's see, what else is there? That is all, guys. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I will see you tomorrow, probably. You have a question. Well, I haven't cut this chat